Hello, podcast listeners. This is your host with the most, JJ, coming to you with an exciting episode of JJ Meets World. Our guest today is the Sloth Goth herself, Alaura Klegstad, who talks all about cosplay and even about how cosplay is not consent. Get into this podcast and learn all about how to do yourself up so that you can look like John Candy from the animated series Camp Candy or whatever it is that you're into. I might just be projecting myself. And Tucker and I talk about some of our favorite childhood book series, and Tucker's super obsession with one as well. He would really like a side gig as a detective. But more on that as we enter this episode of JJ Meets World. Patreon.com/JJ Meets World is the best way you can support this podcast. Let's get going.
1, 2, 3, 4. J.J. Gordon, sort of like that Indiana Jones, in that he's always sniffing out his next adventure. Yes, he is. He's always interviewing guests so he can have them on his show and they can talk about pop culture, arts, and leisure. J.J. has his flag unfurled and he likes his french fries curled, and he's fun and then he twirls as he goes to meet the world. He will march into the rain even if his ankle sprain. Take a peek inside his brain. This podcast is called JJ Meets World.
When I was a kid, there was nothing I loved more than book series. So I read through all of the Goosebumps. I read through the Boxcar Children. I read through Encyclopedia Brown.
Hell yeah. That's my boy right there.
There were a couple other ones too. And I don't know why they don't do something like that more for adults. Like, I would love if they started writing Encyclopedia Brown, but he's someone in his mid-30s now. And just kind of like let him age with the group of people who read his stuff.
Right. Well, I'd like the idea then that he's still living at home with his parents. His dad is still like the sheriff, and he just stays at home because that's where he gets to solve all the cases that come up. I was obsessed with Encyclopedia Brown as a kid. I recreated his Encyclopedia Brown detective agency sign, but with my name instead on my dad's door, and never got a case.
Oh,
I was so bummed.
Not a single case?
But I would have been dog shit at solving the cases. Yeah, absolutely.
I remember thinking like the Boxcar Children. I was like, how did this millionaire's grandkids end up living in a boxcar? And like, it worked out really well for them for a while. Really, they were at the beginning of the tiny house era. And then with things like Goosebumps, it seemed like there was a new Goosebump book every 2 days. And
those covers, we were addicted to those covers.
Oh, yeah.
Because the Scholastic book fair or whatever would come through, you'd get the order form, and the most ordered thing were always the Goosebumps books because you'd look at the image and you go, that's amazing.
That's amazing. I remember one of the greatest gifts I ever received was a sticker set that was a sticker version of every single cover. And so it looked like a mini book. And so what I would do is I would just like put them in places of things like I loved so much, like notebooks where I had ideas or had written love letters to elementary school girls that I was never going to send to them. I was like, I'm going to put the Camp Jelly Jam sticker on this so she knows I mean it.
I would put hearts next to their picture in my yearbook.
Aww.
But I think I went in, and I'm pretty sure, I'd have to go look. I think I went in and colored the hearts out and then put the same spot on like every girl's image so you couldn't tell which ones I had hearted initially. I think at some point I went back and covered it up. That was like third grade.
So you went in and redacted what you did, but then you're like, I'm just gonna go over. Might as well just burn that yearbook at that point.
I love that yearbook. I'm not doing that.
Okay. This ties into our guest today, the Sloth Goth, aka Alaura Klegstad, who is an avid cosplayer and got into it the way a lot of other people did, with just thinking like it would be so much fun to be this person or create this.
Being a fan.
And this is one of the most interesting conversations we've ever had about something that I am not even remotely a part of the universe of.
I wouldn't say that's necessarily true. We talk about your Halloween choices, and you don't identify as a cosplayer, but you certainly put much more thought into your Halloween costume choices, which I think kind of puts you into the cosplay arena a little bit.
I appreciate that. Thank you for
You appreciate aesthetic and work. And
so what I will say though is even though I don't consider myself part of this community, I do consider myself a huge fan of cosplay.
Yeah.
Because when the San Diego Comic-Con comes around, I love clicking through our top 600 images from cosplay at Comic-Con. And there are some amazing things that people are doing. And we're not talking about just Spider-Man, Superman, Harley Quinn. We're talking about some really deep dives into stuff. I mentioned a couple of characters during this episode from Chippendale's Rescue Ranger that can be cosplayed. And there are people who have become characters from the show Ghost Rider.
Really?
Yeah, who like Gabby from Ghost Rider. And the thing is you look at it and you're like, that seems familiar. And they say, I'm Gabby from, and you go, Ghost Rider, you say it at the same time. It is amazing and it blows your mind. So I've got a lot of respect for what Laura does, and we're gonna attach to this Facebook post where this episode is launched. Some of her direct, like her Instagram account.
Yeah, big social media following.
I think if you look at these things after the episode, first of all, if you don't want to go to Instagram in the first 5 minutes of this episode, I don't know if you're really gonna get as much out of this as
the first 5 minutes
really
are you and I just gabbing.
I'm talking about after the episode starts. I think of this as like the pre-intro. This is the waiting line for the ride at Disney World.
I always think of Dana Del Val's episode because we talked for 10 minutes about gym socks.
Yep. And when she posted about it, she goes, listen to this episode of podcast. I mean, you got to get through this gym socks conversation before you get into it. So let's not waste anybody's time anymore at this point. Let's get right into this episode. And while you're on the Sloth Goth's Instagram page, think about maybe opening up your browser and going to patreon.com/JJMeetsWorld and help support this podcast that we bring to you for free twice a week. There's over 100 hours, I think, at this point of content that we've put out. And it's been an exciting year for us. We've got another exciting year coming up. And the best way you can support us is by giving us money. It's not like PBS because we're not going to give you a tote. But we are going to thank you profusely. And Tucker and I talk about you on a personal level if you join our Patreon. We're like, I wonder what so-and-so's doing today. I wonder what they're like. I'm going to send some good vibes to them. Patreon.com/JJMeetsWorld. Let's get this podcast going.
JJ Meets World.
Welcome, Alaura Klegstad, to JJ Meets World. People might know you better by your online handle, the Sloth Goth, and cosplay is your jam, huh?
It is. That's been my life for the past year, probably a solid year. I've been an avid cosplayer.
So tell me, if people don't know what cosplay is, give us a little info on it.
All right. So it comes from the word costume play. It originated in Japan. It's basically when you dress up like a character, a fiction or real world, I guess, and you play as if you are them in some cases. Or, people just dress up and act like their own awkward selves.
So I think of places like Comic-Con. The cosplay has just exploded over the last 5 to 10 years, where people are putting lots of time, lots of effort, lots of money into these very, very photorealistic costumes. I think of, for example, this last year at Comic-Con, there was a young lady who dressed up like Gadget from Chippendale's Rescue Rangers, and the costume was out of this world amazing, even to the point of where she contacted the Disney studios to find out what the actual color of the jumpsuit was so she could appropriately dye it to that color.
Oh, yeah.
Like that color name. So what are some things that you've done over the last year that you go like, yep, this is where I'm really, really crushing it?
Oh, man. I always think of like cosplay as, kind of like being an artist. Before I got into cosplay, I would draw and paint and express myself in that aspect. And when you're an artist, you make something, you create something, and you're like so passionate about it. And then like 3 months later, you're like, this is trash. I must redo it. I must start over. And that's kind of like what I have been doing. And I've explored that. And I have a couple other friends who we'll make first prototype, costumes, and then we'll upgrade. I always joke like, oh, I'm a Virgo. We love to upgrade things. So that's that's what I always do. I'm always striving to like make something better. But the past year, I have like explored more anime, got into more Star Wars. I have a couple good friends who have just like brought me into this world of cosplay and more fandoms. So I think in the past year, I started cosplaying like Power Girl. She's from DC Comics, and she's a very sexualized character because she's an alternate version of Supergirl from a different world, and she's more older. I started cosplaying her because we had the same haircut, and that's a terrible, terrible reason to cosplay someone. But she's so much fun to cosplay because
if you got one step already completed,
yeah.
why not? Right.
That's why when I was Professor X for Halloween a couple of years ago, it was amazing. I just shaved my beard and I sat in a chair the whole time.
Yeah, there you go.
It's perfect.
And then when I stood up, I was Lex Luthor because I was in a suit. So anyway, sorry.
No, that's awesome. See, like, and it's fun. You can go off something like that. So Power Girl, she has short blonde hair, and then she has this boob window in her suit. And I'm like, well, there's a second step I have right there. I mean, like, I can just scoop everything up in my body into my chest, and then boop, there it is. And I'm like, this is perfect. So I just bought like the costume on like some like eBay, AliExpress shop, and slowly but surely I've been like redoing it, making it better, making it more authentic. She's like my fan favorite, obviously for obvious reasons. So like she's one of my girls that I love cosplaying. I also do a rebel pilot, just a generic rebel pilot from Star Wars, and I had a couple friends introduce me into the idea of joining Rebel Legion, and Rebel Legion is you know what?
Heard of it before, yeah.
Yep, they had the 501st Mandalorian Mercs, and then the Rebel Legion.
Yeah. 501st Vader's Fist is the Stormtrooper group, right? Is that the Stormtrooper group?
I don't know. I thought it was just...
that might be the local one, because we have a local Stormtrooper group, and I'm pretty sure they refer to themselves as Vader's Fist.
Okay.
But I'm sorry, keep going.
No, that's interesting to know, because like the friends that I have in the Colorado area 501st group, they're all like the main characters. Like I have a friend who's a Kylo Ren and a Phasma and a... I'm just drawing a blank right now. But they've been like, trying to get me into like, oh, you should update your costume more and get into the Rebel Legion with your Rebel Pilot costume. So that's an idea that I have. But man, these costumes, especially for 501st Rebel Legion, they're so expensive. Like even something as simple as like Rey's costume from The Force Awakens, to get everything like the material right and like her staff and everything, it's like a couple $100 like minimum.
And I know in a lot of these Stormtrooper groups too that they're very strict about how the costume has to look because they're supposed to be uniform so they can march as a unit. And I mean, I don't know a kid at all who didn't see a Stormtrooper costume and didn't want to dress up as that. I mean,
oh man, I would.
The Star Wars costumes are so badass. We were speaking before we started here too about Captain Marvel. I have to assume Captain Marvel is, if she's not already in your repertoire, is going to be in there pretty soon. Yeah,
she was actually one of the first costumes I bought. Just on Amazon, like the spandex regular costumes, and just like I think last week I finally threw down like $350 for kind of like a more Captain Marvel like MCU version of a costume.
Got it.
So yeah, she's coming. She's coming soon in the mail. But I'm also a giant cosplayer. I'm like 5'9".
I was gonna say you're very tall, so finding a costume that can fit appropriately must be a little bit difficult. So that's probably how you got into cosplay. Like, okay, I know I'm going to have to alter this in one way, shape, or form.
Oh yeah. And like today I'm wearing like these huge clogs, like gotta keep the goth aesthetic.
One of our previous guests, Sabrina Hornung, had a Wonder Woman costume, but she's another tall person. She's got a major,
she's
a huge
got like
torso.
6 inches on you, I think.
Yeah.
At least.
Yeah.
And so her problem was, she goes, if I hike the Wonder Woman costume up too much, I'm showing too much downtown. And he goes, but if I pull it down, I'm showing too much of uptown.
Oh yeah.
And so that has got to be tough because when they make a medium-sized costume, I don't know who they're basing these things off of, because you'll get a medium that is way too small or way too big. You never seem to find something that's just right.
No.
Or if you do, you'll order a second version of whatever it is, and it's changed slightly.
Oh yeah. It's usually they try and make it for like the average size girl, which is like 5'6". I mean, if that. So funny that you actually bring that up because I started a group on Facebook for girl cosplayers who are 5'9" and up because we all have.
Nice.
I just did this last week too. I kept talking about it and thinking about it, and I got a couple friends on board, and they're like, "Yeah, you should. I think this would be a good idea." And like Facebook groups, like they're a dime a dozen, but I'm like, "No, I'm gonna be serious about this. Okay, like." I'm going to take this seriously. So yeah, I started a Facebook group for cosplayers. It started with a couple of my girlfriends I knew just around the Colorado area who also cosplay. And we all share the same problems of like, like I have a tall torso. I have long legs. I can't find like bodysuits that will fit me without like giving me camel toe or whatever.
Yeah, right. And so for the last 7 Halloweens, I have built from scratch John Candy characters from movies. So I've gone as Uncle Buck. I've gone as
you went as Barf from Spaceballs.
I went as Barf from Spaceballs, which is the most cosplay I've ever done.
That's
it involved
awesome.
Makeup, it involved building like with like a fur piece and everything. I was so and it turned out beautifully.
It was awesome.
I'm so proud of the Barf costume I put together.
And Amazon's the place to like get some of that stuff too. The jumpsuits, like you.
Oh yeah,
I've seen
so
them.
nice.
Absolutely.
And this is the first time ever on Amazon where I had to start reading the fits as expected area because I ordered a Carhartt jumpsuit that was my appropriate chest size and my appropriate pant size, but I got it on. I couldn't even like get it zipped up past my belly button,
Yeah.
and I was going, "What?" And I knew if I just flex my arms, that thing was going to just rip. So I said, "Oh, fits is expected 37%." So I was like, "Oh, okay. I just got to be smarter about how I read these things."
But if you get like a size up, you're like going to be swimming in it because it's going to be like 3 inches.
That was my big issue. And so I read on the forum that they said, here's some tips, right? So if you get something that's bigger and it ends up being too long, the easiest thing you can do is like to cuff a pant leg, because if you have 3 extra inches on your pant, no sweat, you just fold it into itself and use a needle and thread, or you probably have like a bitchin' sewing machine, don't you?
No,
Do you do it all by hand?
No, I do have a good sewing machine, but it's like the cheapest of the cheap that you can get like on Amazon. Because before I got this nice sewing machine on Amazon, I had like this crazy crickety old like. I had to like make like a little fire in order to like start the engine for the sewing machine, and I sewed with that for years. And then I had a couple of friends who were like, "You need to get rid of this. Like, we'll start a GoFundMe if you just get rid of this sewing machine." So my parents actually like surprised me for Christmas and got me a good sewing machine. And oh my god, like after having this piece of shit sewing
Oh yeah, you can say shit all you want.
This piece of shit sewing machine, you're like, what have I been missing my whole life?
You think of all those extra hours you spent with like a bad stitch and going like, oh yeah, like this could have been all alleviated by just getting a nice sewing machine.
I know. I was so young and stupid back then.
So Tucker has informed me that you've got, I'm not a big social media person, but he informs me that you've got quite the following on social media, and that there are people who can't wait to see what your next piece of cosplay.
That's where I found her.
Right.
Her account, because I think it was through, I want to say maybe one of the Valkyries of the Valley or something had shared one of your photos, and I think that was how it kind of came to be. And then she had a photo of her in snow, and I thought, well, there's a good chance she's up in this part of the country, so it just worked out that she was going to be around here.
Yeah, I totally forgot to ask you. I thought you might have seen. I was just on an interview type show on YouTube. I just got into YouTube recently, and one of my friends of friends invited me onto like his YouTube interview show. And like the next day, you messaged me like, "Hey, let's go on a podcast."
Oh, okay.
So I thought, well, maybe you saw me through there because he has like quite a bit more following,
right,
than I do on YouTube. I started YouTube back in November, and it's a job and a half.
It is.
So,
it absolutely is.
So I still do it. I just don't do it as often as I used to. So yeah, no. Yeah, I'm associated with the Valkyries of the Valley. I did a burlesque performance at ValleyCon in October with them. They were nice enough to say, yes, come in our show, have a spot, fall on your face, eat a dick. And I did.
Well, they've been on our show before.
Yeah.
So that was part of it too.
So you put all this time and effort into a costume that goes through several different iterations. After you wear it, do you retire it, or does it come out whenever the situation is appropriate for that particular piece of cosplay to come out?
That's a good question, because there's some cosplayers who will only make the costume once, they'll wear it once, and then it's dead to them. And I think that's crazy. That's so
crazy.
expensive. But they'll they'll buy a lab coat for a Harley Quinzel costume, and then they'll use it. They'll retire that and then use it for like a Rick and Morty costume. And I'm like, that's really cool, but I can't throw money around like that. And also, I like to build a portfolio, So there's some costumes where I'll wear once, because I'm like, oh, I want to wear this to an anime convention, and then I'll bring it back. There's just not a lot of anime conventions around here per se.
There's not.
So I'll wear it once, I'll bring it back, I'll put it away for 8 months, I'll redo some things, and I'll bring it out when the time arises. I've only had to retire one costume, and that was this Zentai Spider-Gwen suit I got for super cheap on eBay. And the first time I wore it, it started pilling. Red flag right there. It started pilling, and then I got a couple more uses out of it. But right now, it's just it's in shambles. I still have it for props, or if I want to use it as a prop in a photo shoot or something. Otherwise, that's the only reason I will retire a character, is if the costume is dead,
Breaking down itself.
Yeah.
And explain pilling. If people have never heard that before, or they don't have a fabric shaver at home. What is pilling?
Oh, okay. So basically, if you've ever bought a shirt from Forever 21 or one of those cheap girly
I only
shoes,
buy my clothing from Forever 21.
I hope you do.
This X-Men shirt came. Oh yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised. It's Forever 21. They don't know what they're doing right now. But it's if you have really cheap material, it starts getting basically falling apart. You get these little cotton balls on the shirt, and it just looks ratchet. So
Yeah, it's not good. I had a couch that started to pill once, and I was like, what am I supposed to do? So I bought a fabric shaver. Well, you can only do so much.
Yes.
With something like that, right?
Yeah.
Before you
I've
start
learned.
Pulling the integrity of the couch apart.
Just get a sheet for the couch.
That's what we did.
Okay, good.
And I was like, well, we got cats. So what are some things over the years that you've cosplayed that you said some anime characters? You want to drop any specifics?
Yeah. How much anime do you two know about?
Just a little bit, but we're
We're gonna find out.
Okay, cool.
Right, but we are not our listeners, so I think a lot of them actually do have some anime background.
Okay, 'cause
So.
that's my new area right now. Because back in the day when I was 13, I'm I like over I don't know, the Host Club, and I don't remember Soul Eater and stuff like that. But right now I got into more anime. So I did a burlesque Sailor Moon when I was with the Valkyries.
That must have been popular.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. It was very expensive and took a lot of work, but it was so gorgeous. And I want to redo that 10 times over.
I like Sailor Jupiter, but I'm talking specifically about the Japanese live action TV show that they did of Sailor. Me and my roommate at the time, I don't know how he found it, but he's like, there's this live action Japanese show, and I found someone that wrote all the English subtitles, and we marathoned the entire show.
And it was live action.
It was live action, and what's the cat's name? Luna?
Yes.
So Luna half the time is a little stuffed animal, and half the time is a CG character that are very, very different. And it was so cheesy, but we just kind of fell in love with it for whatever reason, and I became a Sailor Jupiter guy.
Okay.
It amazes me because when I think of the Sailor Jupiter or Sailor Moon characters, there's not a lot of actual costume there. There's a lot of skin exposed, but it's expensive. So is it expensive because you have to have the hair pieces as a part of it, or is it just these costumes are in such demand that people can charge whatever they want for them?
Well, at least the cosplayers that I roll with, we all try to make most of our costumes if we can. I think it can go either way, because you can go on Amazon and buy a $60 costume and a $20 wig. But then again, you can also buy the nicer fabric so it'll last you longer. And there's also there's $20 Amazon wigs that you can find, and there's also really nice $60 to $120 wigs that you could invest in too. And I think it's just your skill level, how committed are you to cosplay, and I'm trying to get into that deeper water of investing more in your characters, because I want them to look as nice as possible. Because as your skill set gets better, you kind of want to better your craft.
Is there sort of a standard that the cosplay community, holds for what would qualify you as a cosplayer? So if someone is just buying a costume off the rack, that's all they ever do, and they wear it to a con or something, Would that be considered the same as someone who actually invests in the creation of it, the character itself, the presentation, and everything else that goes along? I guess the simpler question is, what is the dividing line between someone who is a cosplayer and someone who just wants to put on a costume?
This is in my humble opinion. I can only speak for myself, and I'm like, if you think you're a cosplayer, then do it. Like, if you just want to wear your one like super cheap Halloween costume to a Comic-Con, you're like, I'm cosplaying, this is fun, girl, do it. So I don't think it's kind of like if you consider yourself being like, oh, I'm a gym guy. Like, I only go like, a couple times a week and I walk on the treadmill for 20 minutes.
We are not gym guys.
So like, but you're like, hey,
we are indoor kids.
Yeah, it's same here. It's North Dakota.
Yeah.
But like, if you gotta set that standard for yourself. Because I have I have a couple guy friends who will only do one costume, one character. I have a good friend in Colorado who cosplays Captain Phasma, and he doesn't consider himself a cosplayer, even though his Captain Phasma 501st suit costs $6,000.
Right.
That's all he does. He's like, I'm not really a cosplayer. I'm a craftsman. Like, I want to keep perfecting this craft and doing Captain Phasma, but he doesn't consider himself that, even though he's like a god of craftsmanship and costume making.
You see a lot of, especially with female cosplayers, they'll regardless of the initial gender identity of that character, it's like, whatever, I want to dress up as that character. Do you see male cosplayers doing the same as much, or do male cosplayers more or less tend to stick to quote unquote originally male gendered characters versus like male cosplayers that would dress up as as Wonder Woman or Rogue or Dazzler or something else like that? Yeah,
I've seen that too, and it's like, honestly,
that's awesome.
Yeah, because sometimes some guys will do it as a joke. Okay. I have this photo of myself as dressed as Captain Marvel with an old man dressed as Sailor Moon, and he's rocking
That's awesome.
it, and he was so friendly, and he was just having a good ass time. And then I have like other people who said Denver Comic-Con who's like big hairy dude like dressed as Wonder Woman. He's just doing it for shits and giggles.
Right.
And then I have a couple friends who are like, no, I want to make myself look as like feminine as possible.
Right.
There's this one cosplayer, I'm going to totally forget their name, but they're really, really avid in the community. And I'm sure someone who's listening to this who's also avid will be like, that's this person's name, how can you forget it? But he's a gentleman, he's pretty cool, and he will cosplay like these women with like huge chest, and he has these crazy wigs, and it's so extravagant, but then he takes it off. It's like, oh, you're a dude.
Just a regular dude.
Yeah, but he's so passionate about like, I want to make myself another crazy human being.
During the week, I'm a plumber. Now on the weekend, I'm Sailor Jupiter.
See, I wonder if there are like superheroes who cosplay as plumbers. If there's like a reverse of that somewhere.
I think Batman does, yeah.
You think so?
Yeah.
Yeah. Bruce Wayne's like, I'm gonna be a Burger King employee.
I will say though that I'm glad that cosplay has now become an official thing, because I remember I used to subscribe to Wizard magazine in the 90s, and my favorite issue was always the Halloween issue, because people would build their own costumes, and there was no cosplay community. There wasn't an American term for it at the very least. And they would build a costume and they would send in a photo, and then the best ones would get published. And someone made this absolutely killer Predator costume, like killer movie style quality. And as a 8-year-old, I was thinking, you can just make that at home. Someone made the Scarlet Spider, and I thought, that's amazing. That'd be way easier than making a regular Spider-Man costume. So the desire to do this has been out there for a while, but now there's a community, like a subculture that actually identifies with it, which is making it progress even more.
And thank goodness for the internet, right? Because if someone cracks the nut on something, they can share that with with a huge array of people who say, gosh, I want to be Thor, but I can't figure out the way to make the hammer just right, or I need high-res pics of, all of the workings on the leather so I can figure out how to duplicate that. And so that used to be the type of thing where you'd have to go and seek out someone in person at a place like Comic-Con, but nowadays there's YouTube channels devoted to things like that. I think of episode, hold on, I just pulled it up so I can reference it specifically. Episode 57 of JJ Meets World, when we had Brian Hellevang on, who works for a company called We've Got Mail, and they make chainmail. It's just right here in Ada, Minnesota, and they make chainmail for Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones and all sorts of other stuff. Yeah.
And when we were talking before the podcast with Brian, he was talking about, you'd be surprised how many people are buying chainmail nowadays because they want that photorealistic cosplay costume.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you work with chainmail, like, as much as people who make Game of Thrones costumes, and like you lose your fingerprints. It's such a hard material to work with. And I was gonna say too, I have an office job now. I went from retail to office job, and I love it. But I'm gonna be honest, 30% of the time I'm like online looking at tutorials on how to like make things. I'm like, I have no interest in making a Wonder Woman skirt, but I'm gonna learn how to like turn regular foam into leather looking, and it's so fascinating to me. It's just like it's something to learn. It's like it's an infinite amount of stuff you can learn and learn from others. And I used to live in Colorado, if I haven't mentioned that like 4 times before.
Where'd you live? Colorado?
I lived in Colorado. They have a crazy booming cosplay community, and I was thankful enough to find my tribe down there of cosplayers, and they taught me so many things. We swapped tricks, and then I moved back up here, and I'm like, oh snap, that's right, I live in the boonies where like we have like a Grand Forks Comic Con like once a year, and then Fargo has like 4 or 5.
Yeah, Valley Con, Core Con, and I think there might be a horror themed one.
Yeah,
the cons seem to be popping up faster and faster. But at the same time, I think, do we have the population to sustain all of these cons? They all become mediocre cons. What if some of them became like a really major one? But who knows?
I don't think we'd have a major one. Valley Con has been around for like 40 years. I think they'll keep doing that. But there's the people are there. They will come to that. We just need to like advertise more and get more things into it. I went to Valley Con in 2017, and there was a couple, a Sailor Moon and then a Tuxedo Mask, and they were from like Wapaton, and they came out all the way over to Fargo because they're like, we just love conventions. And
and cosplayers have a lot in common with people like previous guest Tim Jorgensen, who is steeped in Viking culture, and he does blacksmithing, and he'll create era accurate as possible, like clothing out of leather and stuff. And he helps with Viking reenactments, Civil War reenactors. The Society for Creative Anachronism likes to do a lot of medieval stuff. I mean, it's the same skill set and the same passion for the subject material, but it just so happens that one is based on some sort of historical time period, but it's just a different character. It's really just like a different aspect of it.
Yeah, Renaissance people and cosplayers really go hand in hand. I have a couple of friends who came from the Renaissance theme, and now they're into the cosplay scene, and vice versa.
I want to see a Civil War reenactment, but with Marvel Civil War, but in Civil War costuming. And I think Tony Stark is a Confederate, in my opinion. Even though Cap is like the rebel there, but I side with Cap, so he has to be Union.
That's tough. Or is it Marvel 1657? Is that what it was called?
Right,
the Marvel series that was set like
in the Pilgrim era.
Yeah,
New America. And
so you get all of those famous characters, but they'd be in that era appropriate clothing.
Right. I think even with Batman, they did Gotham by Gaslight.
Yeah,
which
is really
where
cool.
he fought Jack the Ripper.
Right, but it's Victorian era Batman, which is one of the strengths of Batman too. You can put Batman in any genre.
Yeah,
any genre. And he fits. You
just
can make
crushes
a
it.
Cowboy Batman, Space Batman, Underwater Batman, whatever is going to work.
Oh, I love crossovers like that too. I mean, one crossover that I was doing right now. Well, like the DC Bombshells series too. That's like one of the popular ones because like the costumes are so gorgeous, and they just keep expanding that universe. And that's another one where I'm like, this is awesome. Like I love crossover stuff like that. I know some people are like, they'll see like cosplayers do like like a big one is steampunk. People will take like Batman and put him into steampunk, or Aquaman and put him into steampunk. Like that's not my cup of tea, but I can appreciate that. Forgot where I was going with that.
Well, it's they're doing the same thing that the artists and writers of all of these characters have been doing over the years, which is reinventing them, finding new spins on them, because they're never going to go away, which is great. That's why they're popular, but it's also they become a canvas of their own. Batman is a canvas that you can now create whatever you want on, and you can ignore whatever you want. Just make your own version of Batman. There's a Batman for every season.
His parents just have to be dead. That's all. that's the only piece that follows through. I want to comment quickly on your purse. It's you've got an Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. Is this like official Elvira work, or did you put that on yourself?
No. Okay, so last night I went to my cousin's house and we exchanged Christmas gifts. I got her the dumbest shit. So she got me this gorgeous purse. It's Elvira. I know how expensive these things are, and it's a shape of a coffin. And I just I cried. I was so excited to get it. And then so she got me that last night, and I was like, I'm never using anything else ever again. But and then last night I made on Vistaprint those cards that they're business cards, and they say fuck on them, and you can like fill out like what you want to say, like fuck this, fuck that, fuck you, and the horse you rode in on. And I gave her like 200 of them for Christmas, along with a mouse pad with that Yoda reaction when he's like going forward and his eyes are bugging out of his head, and I made that into a mouse pad. And I'm like,
Did she write "fuck you" for giving me this present?
She should have. I was like, I'm so sorry.
How are you supposed to anticipate that?
You gave me this
right?
gorgeous. Exactly.
Right.
I'm like, I gave you the dumbest shit. I'm so sorry. But she's just a bundle of joy, and she was so thankful for it.
So, I mean, do you like Elvira? Did she know this, or did she just kind of take a shot in the dark?
I met Elvira at Estes Park Comic Con, so I follow her on Instagram. She's like one of my favorite goth mothers, and I went to Estes Park Comic Con for one day in July, and she was there.
Estes Park is one of my favorite cities in the entire country.
Yeah.
I love the story of the Stanley Hotel and how that became synonymous with The Shining and Dumb and Dumber of all things.
Yeah.
I also personally, Cassandra Peterson is one of the funniest female comics
She's hilarious
out there in the world. And the fact that she's built this empire is amazing to me. And it just goes to show you that you can play this character and embody this character, and just like there's so much that goes beyond it, because people, when she walks around, people don't normally recognize her, but the second that she hops into Elvira, there are 60-year-olds who recognize her from her Bud Light beer campaign, or the people who used to watch the program, or people like me who are obsessed with the Mistress of the Dark movie that came out in the 80s, which I still think is one of Edie McClurg's best movies.
They're in talks. She looks as good as she did,
absolutely.
20 years ago. And there's in talks of making a sequel, which I'm all for.
Well, when you sleep in a coffin, I mean, you're not going to get a lot of sunlight to damage your skin.
That's what I do. That's why I live up here.
And when you drink the blood of the innocent, it keeps you young. So yeah, that's why she's dead.
One thing that Elvira did when, Cassandra, before she became Elvira, she was in improv groups, and she was a comedian. And I relate to that because I never did that, but I've always been like the funny girl. I've always have a joke up my sleeve, and I'm really bad at this though. I always thought about like writing them down, like, oh, I should do stand up. Maybe not now, I'm too busy. But I always like have jokes, and I'll tell them to like 3 people, and then I just forget about them. Like I'll get like 3 good reactions, and I'm like, okay, I'm done with that joke. But she used to do stand up and improv, and then she became like Elvira is one of her characters that she like tried on, and this over sexualized like vampire kind of like Mistress of the Dark, and people loved it. That's how she got like her start, and that's that gives like some hope to girls like me, where I'm like, I'm really funny, but I'm also like a character. I'm not an actor by any means of sorts, but I can also do that, and that's like the kind of good thing that comes from cosplay. A lot of people who do cosplay are like more introverts. They're more into themselves. They're like, we're little nerds who will just come out of our rooms, for Comic Cons, and that's awesome. And then we can just expand our horizons and communicate with each other. And yeah, I just love the idea of like, you can still be yourself and mix, your own character off of who you were originally.
Right. So does the cosplay community dovetail at all with the fan film community? Since people there's a big community that makes Star Wars fan films, Star Trek fan films, all sorts of stuff like that, and they need excellent costuming.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, do you have connections with people that also do that? Is there ever a back and forth, or are they kind of separate walled gardens?
I personally haven't been in any of those, I haven't met any of those people before, but there are some things. I have another good friend who cosplays Kylo Ren in Colorado, and he's going to school to be a director. I shouldn't actually say that. He's going into film school of some sort, and he did use some of like his friends in the 501st and the Rebel Legion for like some sort of fan film last year. So there is that idea of like, hey, I need to do this one thing. Can I borrow you and your costume and your friends? I just haven't been in that camp before.
Got it.
What's Halloween like for you? I bet it's amazing.
That's an awesome question. So there's actually like this meme I shared around Halloween, and it's a girl standing in front of like all these extravagant costumes, and she's like, when you're a cosplayer and you don't have anything to wear for Halloween. But I shared that, and a lot of my cosplay friends were like, that's because you do not want to go to a bar and wear your expensive ass costume and have some drunk dude like spill a drink on you. I'd be ticked. So this year I just pulled a Cub Scout costume together, and I was just a regular, like I had a Boy Scout like shirt and like bandana, and I think I drew freckles on my shirt or on my face, and that's about it. But there's some people who are like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be an asshole and like go to like a costume contest in my authentic Wonder Woman, costume, and I'm like, more power to you, but I mean, a lot of us,
you're really risking it.
Yeah, like you're gonna risk like having someone pour something, spill a drink on you or whatever.
But even like your description of like, oh, I just have this simple Boy Scout costume and I added freckles to it, where you were gonna be like, okay, I gotta dial this back a little bit. That's right.
Yes,
I'm not trying to go. Me. I'm not trying to go full cosplay on this.
Exactly.
Thing.
Like that's like my cheat day for cosplay. Like that's like my diet day. That's my cheat day. Is Halloween. I'm like, I don't have to do shit because I do this like every weekend into the summer.
Okay, so I'm gonna be bold here. Let's to know each other really well.
Yes.
Have you ever hooked up with someone else while you were cosplaying and stayed in the cosplay arena?
No.
So
I don't have time for like that. I'm assuming you're thinking like, have you ever gone to a Comic-Con and like hooked up with someone? Like, you know how busy Comic-Cons are for avid cosplayers? Like,
see,
you're
I wouldn't know that.
End of the convention GX. You got a panel at 1. You got a photo shoot at 1:45.
My thought would be more like this. Like, I remember going home in my barf costume, right, and like,
hooking up with like a robot.
Yeah, it's like, oh, am I mixing DC and Marvel here?
I don't know what it is, but that barf over there is looking sexy as hell.
My thing is that so Tucker and I we've been in theater for years too, and so if you go to an after party, and they make fun of this in SNL in the perfect way, where everyone's there and they're all in their theatrical makeup, and if you hook up and you kind of like start kissing, you're like, oh my god, this is just like there's so much makeup everywhere.
That's also a very specific age range. Like I'm 33, and so most of my theater friends, we're all either married or whatever, and there's no like making out.
It's like go home and get into bed as soon as possible.
That's sort of like a college theater, high school theater definitely, but college theater. Now our theater parties, you've been to one or two of them, they're boring.
They really are.
Good food, boring. No making out.
Yeah, on the food.
No making out.
You're
just going to the wrong old people.
But see, that's the thing is like, so I guess my experience when I go to CoreCon, I'm going to experience the fun, and I'm also going to get just sloppy drunk. The host rooms at CoreCon are just amazing.
Oh yeah,
but. So my experience at CoreCon and your experience at CoreCon must be drastically different because you're not. It's like a work weekend for you almost, right?
Yeah, sometimes. Okay, so yeah, I had like really avid like work weekends. Like Denver Comic-Con is like a work weekend because I volunteer at Cap for Kids, just as a booth person, and half the board is like my family. So I volunteer with them. So that's like a really busy weekend. Like we gotta go to panels, we gotta see the people we gotta see, because that's like Denver Comic-Con is like it's the biggest family gathering you'll ever experience, especially if you live in the cosplay community in Denver. Like for a year, you want to see people you haven't seen in like 8 months. So that's a work weekend. But there's a Comic-Con called NDK, and it's in Denver. And it's at the end of August, and I went for the first time to NDK in August with a couple of friends. We just went for that one night. We didn't get a hotel room. I just went with my one good friend. We had friends who had a hotel room, so we can like go there, drop our stuff off, like get water if we need to. And we were gonna like have fun, see what we want to see, and then just party, like have fun, in the evening. And then we're gonna head back. Actually, I think we were staying at someone else's place in Denver. But that was like the weekend where I was like, I don't have any responsibilities. I'm going to dress up in one of my cosplays. And then in the evening, usually like for cosplayers, especially in the anime community, we'll have like day costumes and then we'll have like evening costumes, like more casual. Like we'll do a casual version of our character or have, like they'll have like those giant onesies or something stupid, like something comfortable you can run around in, you can drink in, you can fall asleep in, whatever you want to do. So that's
I know a lot of brides do that too. Like you get to a point like during your wedding day where you just swap into something that's a little more comfortable. That's not the full
Or
wedding
you're
dress.
Greg Carlson, and 2 minutes after the ceremony,
Yep.
you are out of your tux and you are in like
a cardigan,
ween shirt or something like that.
That's a good idea, actually.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
like I do a onesie after my wedding day. That'd be pretty cool. But at NDK, I had like a casual version of my character and a bottle of wine later, and I should have been dead. I should have been pronounced dead. And then that's when you get like you start talking to everyone, and I think my friends actually have better stories than I actually do remember. But that's when you meet like other people and you get to run around, you get to go to raves and dances and see karaoke, and you don't remember going to karaoke, but you went to karaoke, stuff like that. I don't think I'm just not the personality to get like super sloppy drunk and be like, let's make out, because I'm just demisexual and like, don't touch me. No, don't touch me. But like, I'll dance my ass off and like have fun in that sense. So yeah, I do have like work cons. Like this is serious stuff. Like I volunteer. I was at ValleyCon and I had a booth, so I had to be up super early, and I had to like put my own stuff away. So, and I also was a guest too. You don't want to be like, super sloppy when you're being a guest at someone else's con. You want to keep your good reputation. But when you go to an anime con for like the first time, and you don't have any responsibilities, it's like, who let the dogs out?
Yeah.
Me.
Are there cons out there that you haven't been to yet that you would like to go to?
Oh yeah, I think all cosplayers like have their dream con, whether it be like crazy as like San Diego Comic-Con. I think my dream con though would be Emerald City Comic-Con. It's in Seattle. I think because I don't like big conventions. I went to New York once and I got super bad anxiety because it's just huge. It's like if the zombie apocalypse broke up now, I'm a goner.
And how would you know the real zombies from the people who were just cosplaying as zombies at the same time?
And then there's like San Diego. I'm like, that would be cool, but like, no, thank you. It's just so big. But Emerald City, it's in Seattle. It's really cool. I've heard good things about it. That's like one of my dream Comic Cons. I think it'd be cool to go to like Wizard World in Minneapolis. Yeah.
My wife goes to Wizard World every other year.
Okay,
Because
cool.
it's expensive, right?
Yeah.
And she always gets disappointed because Wizard World, if for those of you who don't know, is an interesting company because what they decided to do was they specialized in a single con experience, and then they decided we're gonna make this like a roving con, and we're gonna bring it to other cities, and so they almost franchised out. They're the Applebee's of cons,
No, yeah, they're
where
really
you can
cool.
find them all over.
You're saying there's 4 of them in Fargo, is what you're
Yeah,
saying.
right.
Oh my God.
And it's a genius idea because places like ValleyCon work all year long making these contacts so they can get someone here like a previous member of Star Trek or something like that to have a big name attached to it. But Wizard World could say, well, we want to book you for Kansas City, St. Louis, Phoenix, and Mesa all at the same time. You probably have more of a bargaining power with that. And so the names kind of go up.
It's like Prairie Home Companion, but like for nerds.
Yeah, it really is. It really, really is.
Took
I
a
knew
second to like,
You
it
guys
is.
would get that reference too. Like I make references to Prairie Home Companion in Colorado, and they're like, "What's that?"
Yeah.
No, bebop or
Very
reba,
yeah.
bebop or reba, rhubarb pie.
Is there, just on your list of cosplays you'd like to do someday, but one that you think is, that one's going to be a deep dive, it's going to take me a long time, and I'm not even going to try to approach it until I feel like I'm at a certain skill level. So like, what would be one of those that is on your list, but you're thinking, I'm not going to try to attack this one right now?
Oh yeah, I think all cosplayers have like that dream cosplay. There's a cosplayer in Colorado who's very, very popular, Ginny D, and she always says like, don't have dream cosplays, or she doesn't have any dream cosplays, but she has a great skill set where she can like throw together like the Labyrinth. She does like Princess, the girl, whatever from the Labyrinth. And that was like one of her dream cosplays, and she's like, I just made it true. I do have a couple of those. Like, I really would love to do Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman from.
That's the best Catwoman.
Yeah, I love that. But like the core set is like, I want to make it super accurate, and the core set and the boning and the lying. I'm like, I have never touched steel boning. I don't want to do it in the near future. That's one. But one costume that I'm planning to do this year, I'm saying it on a podcast now, so I have to do it, is the ancient one from Doctor Strange.
Ooh.
So Tilda Swinton is like one of my queens. She's like so
awesome.
androgynous and beautiful, and you know, she's also like 5'11" too. I'm like, hello, I already have the height right there. I'm planning to like buy the costume just like online. Cause I'm not gonna, that yellow like cool robe, I can't make that. So I'm gonna buy it. But one thing is like, you don't see a lot of cosplayers, especially female ones, doing something as crazy as like, I'm gonna make a bald cap and I'm going to, learn how to do that and apply makeup and do, something as broad as, or bold as having a bald head and trying to like embody that character. And I think it'd be amazing because I always see like some like online, I'll see guys doing the ancient one, but they're like, well, I usually shave my head in the summer anyway. You're just more comfortable. And they'll do that. But I haven't seen a female ancient one cosplay. I'm like, I'm going to do that because I don't see it. I want to be the first one, at least who I know, who's going to do that.
As a bald man, it is actually pretty freeing to go, okay, what are some bald male characters that I could go for? Oh, I'd like to do Deadman at some point for Halloween because he's bald. And there was another one that I'm just totally blanking on right now.
But, you should do the Silver Surfer.
Oh, yes. Norrin Rad, absolutely.
That's another one that I would love to do is a female Silver Surfer. And I'm going to work on doing bald caps and stuff, so I might make her bald, but I also longboard. And I think that'd be cool is to paint a longboard
Absolutely.
and go around Denver Comic Con or something.
Me, my surfboard, absolutely.
Yeah.
My dream one just for Halloween, because I'm not a cosplayer, but I definitely love Halloween. And when I can summon the time and energy and money to put together a costume, I would. My dream is to go as Metalhead from Ninja Turtles, but the original style action figure. Because that was my favorite action figure growing up. So basically, he's just a robot Ninja Turtle. But I want to go as accurate as I possibly can. And I look at it and I go, I have no fucking clue how the hell I'm going to make this thing. So at some point, I'm going to tackle it, but it's going to take me a year or two, I'm sure.
Well, and when you approach, two thoughts real quick. Number one, I love how cosplaying has gone even further than just, I'm going to recreate this character. To, I saw a bunch of guys last year at the San Diego Comic-Con who went as the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but the first action figure release, so they built in like where like the changeable
cool.
parts of
The
it. So they were
articulated parts.
cosplaying as the action figures.
My God, yeah.
Which are, of course, action figures of these other characters.
That's really
so
cool.
you're really, you're breaking down levels here. Secondly, what I find to be most interesting is when you have to engineer a costume, and I'm sure you've had to deal with this yourself, Laura, but like a metalhead costume, you're talking about a headpiece, and it's hard to breathe in something like that, right? So you think, I need to be able to be in this thing for a sustained 4 hours at a time at least. So how am I going to breathe through this? There's a company out of Sweden who builds mascots. And it's an engineer who used to work for companies that made like underwater breathing devices. And so he used that knowledge and technology when he was building all of these costumes for people who are going to be in it. So whether you're Hawkeye at the Red Hawks or you're going to be what's the new thing that's in
Philadelphia?
Yeah,
that weird grimace looking thing.
Yeah, the crusty or
I don't know what it's called.
Do you know what we're talking about?
I know what you're talking about, though, yeah.
So grimy, something like that.
Something
But it's
not
Philly. I
pleasant.
mean, Philly's weird.
They got the Philly Fanatic as
It's
another.
a weird town.
But so the technology that has to go into some of these things is just mind blowing.
Well, even now Disney characters have heads that speak.
Yeah.
So like you'll have Mickey, and I'm assuming the actor is either like they have a set amount of things they can say, or somehow it pipes through. But like, seeing a kid like just talking to Mickey Mouse, that's mind blowing.
It's a little creepy.
I love it. I'd love to talk to Mickey Mouse. I'd probably cry though. Actually, I would cry if I talked to Big Bird. Big Bird would make me cry.
Oh yeah, same.
For sure.
But like he naturally, the guy in the suit naturally talks anyway. Like I don't know.
Have you ever seen the documentary?
I Am Big Bird?
I Am Big Bird.
No, I think I've heard of it though.
Gotta watch it. I cried within the first minute because it starts with Carol Spinney. He's done now, but he was still doing Big Bird at the time. He's walking around like in the legs because it's like suspenders in the bottom, and then it shows him on set, and an assistant is helping him get the top on. and his hand goes up for Big Bird's mouth. So you kind of see Big Bird like this, and the Big Bird kind of like comes to life a bit. And then Big Bird blinks and starts to look around and then look down at the stagehand and goes, "Oh, hello, Sharon." And I went,
Oh man,
Big
I would
Bird's
too.
real. Big Bird's real. That's why I want to talk
I would
to Big
too.
Bird.
I
Yeah.
would too.
That's a good movie.
When the Muppets are performing, so Kermit, Miss Piggy, they're kept in these trunks that close, and you can't see into them at all. And the Henson Company had a die-hard rule for years where you could not open one of these trunks if there were children or just like average people around. You could only see a Muppet when they were quote unquote alive. And I find that what a wonderful rule to set for your company to maintain that realism that's taking place. It's for the same reason why on the second day of Disneyland, Walt Disney's like, I failed. They're like, Walt, no, this thing is huge. Like, this is massive. And he goes, no, I just saw a cowboy walking through from Frontierland, walking through Tomorrowland so he could get to the employee commissary. And so
What's a cowboy doing in Tomorrowland?
Right. And he said it just ruins the illusion. It ruins the illusion that we've created where this is a cowboy and he's in Frontierland, he's a cowboy, but now what's he doing in Tomorrowland? That doesn't make sense. And so that's why he immediately wanted to start building this next park, which became Disney World, which when you're in Disney World, you're actually 25 feet above ground level at all times. And there's these enormous corridors that take place underneath the area. So when a cast member goes into like a tree, they walk into like
just
a
a
little
trap
tree.
door. They just fall 25 feet.
Yeah.
That's all it is. They just die. That's fine.
And then they just pile up the bodies down there, and then the ocean takes them away.
Circle of life.
No, that's how else are they going to keep like that meatloaf in the commissary though? That's probably what they're doing too.
Oh, yeah. They're
Every
feeding.
part of the buffalo.
You're feeding. Yeah.
Every
feeding
part
them.
of the buffalo. Yeah.
What do you think an astronaut gets turned into? If a cowboy gets turned into meatloaf, what does an astronaut get turned into?
Ice cream.
Gelato?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tang.
Oh, absolutely. Tang. What am I thinking? So another thing about cosplay that I really love is seeing at conventions when, like, hey, everyone who's Spider-Man, meet over here at this time, and then you just get a million Spider-Man. And a previous guest, Alex Davey, who works on Star Wars games out of the Twin Cities, his favorite character is Wilro Hood, who is the guy in Cloud City when they're evacuating Cloud City, and he was just an extra in the background, and he's carrying literally an ice cream maker because they just needed some prop for him to be. All these people have just fallen into Wilro Hood, and now you'll see like a flash mob of 30 Wilro Hoods,
all with their ice cream maker.
ice cream maker, and it's just their whatever dumpy suit he was wearing. So, have you ever been a part of anything like that, or seen sort of an epic one like that take place at a con?
No, it's my dream to be like in a conga line full of Spider-Man with Deadpool leading it. But I haven't done it actually yet. But I think the one cool thing that we had is the charity that I work with, Cap for Kids. It's Cosplayers Against Pediatric Cancer, and the guy who founded it cosplays Captain America, and then his wife is Black Widow. One of our board members is a Hawkeye, and his girlfriend is Gamora. We've just slowly started accumulating all these characters. That's like, that is our character, and then hopefully this year they'll induct me as their Captain Marvel. And one of my good friends, she wants to be their Wasp, and we just are kind of trying to build that family. So on Sunday of Denver Comic Con this past year, I was Spider-Gwen, and we had this great meetup of everyone, all of our board members and like our friends and family, whatever, met at the table, and we had this awesome meetup of like our board members. We had an Iron Man who also volunteers with us, and we're all in our costumes. Then we had like a guy who is Nick Fury, and he comes by and he's like, "Can I take a picture with you guys?" And then we have like the Homecoming Spider-Man when he's like in his pajamas basically. And he's like, "Can I take a picture with you guys?" And it kept growing and growing. We just kept getting more people. We'd get like a Killmonger walking by with like the princess from Black Panther. And they're like, "Can we get a picture with you guys?" And soon we just had like 20 very authentic, very amazing Marvel characters by our booth and just doing photos with us, because all these costumes are so extravagant and amazing. And like, especially the cosplayers, like we all run with, we, like to cosplay like, more of our body type, and we like to our skill set. Like my friend who cosplays Gamora, she's 5'9", super thin and fit, and she just does like green makeup, and she has like the the wig, the hair. She like made the wig herself, and it's I think that's like the coolest thing that I experienced. Yeah.
What? Okay, so here are a couple follow-up questions to that. Number one, is there an appropriate way to approach someone who's cosplaying to ask to take a picture with them?
Thank you so much for asking that question, because I'm going to get on my soapbox.
Oh,
yes.
Do it.
Yes.
Unleash.
Yeah. Okay. So I started, I mentioned I started YouTube a couple months ago. And one of my big things that I try to promote, like on my YouTube channel and like on my Instagram pages, whatever, is like cosplay is not consent. Drag is not consent. Before I was in cosplay, I also attended a lot of drag shows, and in the Grand Forks community, I'm very like involved in like their LGBT community, and drag is not consent. Cosplay is not consent. So if you want to take a picture with a cosplayer, it's very well known in our community. Not always, but you need to ask. Always ask, because sometimes people they're like, I'm so sorry, I have to get to this panel. I have 2 minutes to get there. I'm just, I don't have time to stop and take a picture, but I'll be here until 7 tonight. Come and find me, whatever. So always ask, just out of consideration for their own time. If you want to take a picture with them, definitely ask, is it okay if I touch you? They're like, yeah. Also, if you want to do like a fun pose, ask if you want to like pose with them. Like, oh, you're cosplaying like Supergirl. Would you like pretend that you're going to punch me? Like, because some cosplayers aren't cool about it. Like, no, I don't want to be portrayed that way. I'm a cute little otaku. And then some people are like, yeah, I'd totally do that. One scenario that I had, I was at Estes Park Comic Con, and I was cosplaying Power Girl, and I had a Deadpool come up to me and wanted to take a picture with me. I'm like, yeah, sure, that's fine. And he posed with me, and I didn't know this because like he's like 5'4" and I'm like in heels, I can't see him. And he looks blatantly at my chest, and I didn't realize that until I was stepping away. And he's like, "Oh, thanks." And I was like, "Excuse you,
damn.
I don't want to pose with you like that. Like that's so inappropriate." And
I love that idea of like cosplay is not consent. Like what a great phrasing for that. Because I think a lot of times think, oh, well, this person dressed up and they're here to, amuse and me. And that's just not the way it is. One of the greatest things that we've, I think, done with cosplay over the years is, I don't know if you've seen the documentary Bat Kid, but the young Make-A-Wish man who gets to save San Francisco, and the people who stepped forward to cosplay things like the Penguin and the Riddler just makes my heart soar. And so can you talk a little bit about this charity that you're involved with, please?
Yeah. So it's Cat for Kids. I'm just a meager volunteer. But like I said, everyone who's involved in it, I count them as my second family. We it's a Denver, Colorado-based charity event. Charity, not a charity event. We do a lot of charity events with them. We raise money for families who have children in the hospital for dealing with pediatric cancer, because every time a child gets diagnosed with cancer, one of the parents usually has to stop working and then to stay with the child. And then that household is usually going off of one income, and that's really financially hard. So we help these families keep their lights on. We help them buy a car. We help them pay a month of mortgage. We help them, buy groceries for their kids or whatever we can do. That's what we want to keep doing. And so far it's been staying in the Colorado state, and that's what people love to hear. When I'm at Denver Comic Con and I'm telling them what Cat for Kids is, I'm like, your money, the money that you're going to donate today is going to stay in your community. It's not going to go to like some place. It's not a tax write-off for anyone. No one collects a paycheck. No one keeps any money. It's all volunteer based. And I'm just a spectator. I'm like, this is a lot of work, trying to organize these events to go at and be at, and whatever you have to do. And it's just amazing. It's a lot of fun. We also do events. We did pediatric cancer run, and we were just we were invited to go be characters at this one festival carnival type thing at a children's hospital this summer. And yeah, that's what we do. They also do like children's hospital visits. I have not been invited to one yet. And then we also have like people and partners with us. Like we have Colorado Captain. I always call him, he's like our cousin to our charity, because he's also Captain America cosplayer. He does like motorcycle tours, runs, stuff like that, kind of like Sturgis, what they have. He also does Sturgis and stuff like that. And he also raises money for our charity, and then his own thing too. And it's just a great community effort. It's just a great way to meet other people and help families. And man, on anytime you volunteer with them, you're not gonna cry that whole day. Like either while you're at the event or like on the drive home when you crawl in bed, you're just like, oh, that was so sad. It's such a good feeling, but you're like, this is a hard thing to do because you're seeing these kids who are like, they're like our little soldiers, and sometimes we might lose a couple in our efforts to like help sustain their homes and their families.
Well, it's got to be, it's not just the kids too, but the parents, right? And seeing them, know that they've got support and it's coming from the world's greatest superhero teams.
Yeah.
It's got to be something that's really, really amazing.
Yeah.
So if people are interested in getting started in cosplay, what would be Cosplay 101? Like, what do you think would be the best way for them to get going?
If you just want to get into cosplay, you don't have, something you might be like, oh, I would love to do like Beast from X-Men, but I don't know how to do that. And you just want to get started into it. I got a really good tip from one of my good friends is start with a costume that only requires 5 pieces. Something like Adventure Time.
Oh yeah.
Blue shirt, blue pants, hat, sword, backpack, boom. You're Finn from Adventure Time. Cartoon characters are super easy for that. Maybe X-Men characters in their normal clothes, whatever. Especially with like Amazon, you can easily buy like a rogue wig with like the white stripe in her hair. That's super easy. So I always suggest like if you just want to get into cosplay because you have a con coming up in a couple weeks and you want to go and you just want to be in the community, start with a costume piece of 5 pieces.
I'm always impressed when somebody who has different abilities and might use a wheelchair pull their wheelchair into the cosplay.
Yeah.
A few years ago, there was at the Fargo Children's Hospital, the Sanford Children's Hospital, they had a costume contest on Halloween, and there was a little Batman in a Batmobile that was amazing.
Yeah.
And it was the Tim Burton Batmobile too, which is a great choice. And I've seen people do that with Professor Xavier and things like that.
A lot of Star Wars TIE fighters, X-Wings, things like that.
I saw Barbara Gordon at a Denver Comic-Con this year. She had like the orange hair. She had a laptop in her lap. And I'm like, Barbara Gordon. She's like, no one has gotten this costume yet except for you.
Oracle's awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, that's great. We've taken up plenty of your time today, but let's go with this. I'm sure people want to see what you look like in some of your cosplay stuff. Where can they find you?
You can find me mostly on Instagram. That's my poison. You can find me at the Sloth Goth. I also have a Facebook page. You can like it on Facebook. It's the Sloth Goth cosplay, I believe. That's really bad. I don't know my own Facebook page. I'm also on YouTube. I have a couple YouTube videos up, and I talk only about cosplay. Also at the Sloth Goth on YouTube. I think that's my 3 main hard hitters. I also have a Twitter as well, but I'll find you and I'll connect you mostly through those main sources.
And then do people ever send you questions and say like, how did you get this wig to look like this? How did you ever do this?
Sort of. I usually just give advice unsolicited, and that's pretty much worked for me. But I do have some people who are like, "What do you use to make your, like what corsets do you use for your cosplays?" And I'm like, "Well, let me tell you. Let me school you in this." So, yeah. Send me a question. I'll try to help you as best I can. If I can't answer like the questions that people give me, I'm like, I know someone who can.
What do you think of this? If JJ did a Kingpin, I think you could do a rockin' Kingpin.
Like from the comic books or from Daredevil series?
Either. I'm cool with either. You'd have to shave your head. Oh, I guess do a bald cap.
I don't know about that.
Because you're like Kingpin in that you're a big guy, but you're strong.
Powerful.
And you're agile.
Actually, what I'd like to do is I'd like to do Kingpin from Into the Spider-Verse and like figure out like how to make like giant broad shoulders like that kind of encompass me. Yeah. That'd be wild. But I don't know how to get through doorways. I'd have to have everything sideways.
You just go like
that. Actually, so I've always wanted to cosplay as Monterey Jack from Chippendales Rescue Rangers.
Yeah,
I think I could really do that.
You'd be good at that.
And make like a little zipper, fly for me that'd be on my shoulder. Either that or Doofy Duck from the original DuckTales series.
Isn't it Doofus?
Is it Doofus?
It's Doofus.
Doofus Duck. Yeah, Doofus Duck.
Yeah.
I think I could also really crush that.
You guys are doing some throwback shows where I'm like, I remember the theme song to these shows, but I know nothing else.
Isn't that the nice thing about it too? Is that you can walk into a room and think like, I know a lot about cosplay, and you'll see characters and be like, I didn't even think that someone would want to cosplay
Right.
that,
Right.
and that's amazing because someone did.
One big one is Lola Bunny from
Oh,
For
Zootopia.
Space Jam?
Oh no,
Yes,
yeah, from Space Jam.
Yeah, like that's a really popular one. And it's like that's such a beautiful character, and people who do that, women who do that, like this is fun.
Yeah.
It's adorable. Like who would have thought I want to do Lola Bunny from Space Jam?
Side note, I'm surprised that character didn't take off more after Space Jam because it was a smart idea to add that female, other than Granny, to the Looney Tunes lineup.
Yeah.
So-
I have a really strong connection to Lola Bunny because when that movie came out, I was very, very young and I couldn't say Alaura, so I'd say Lola. And then my brother, picked Lola Bunny up, and that's been my childhood nickname for years.
Have you ever got cosplayed as Lola Bunny?
No, because it's I think it's like kind of like I don't want to say it's overdone, but I don't really have like the body type, like the athletic figure for it, and that would make me not feel comfortable. And also like there's so many other cosplayers who have done it like 10 times over amazing. I'm like, yeah, just let them do it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Sloth Goth.
Thanks for having me.
That's going to wrap it up for today's show. If you enjoyed this episode of JJ Meets World and would like to help us continue to produce 2 new episodes every week, you can donate to our Patreon. Check out patreon.com/JJ Meets World and donate today. Even as little as $1 a month can go a long way. Visit our website at www.jjmeetsworld.com or hit up our social media. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all the sites the kids are using these days. If you'd like to stay up to date on new episodes of JJ Meets World, you can find us on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, YouTube, or wherever you consume the podcast that you love. JJ Meets World is produced every week by Tucker Lucas. You can find out more about Tucker's work by checking out www.moonbasemaria.com. If you want to get in touch with your host with the most, go to linebenders.com, and you can find direct contact info for JJ. I write Encyclopedia Brown fan fiction, but in it he's solving the mystery of where his insurance ID card is. So it's mainly just chapters of him talking to his insurance provider, asking where his insurance ID card is. But it's there's some twists.